Okay, let's do this thing. I'm Quill. Welcome to my realm. And today, I thought it would be fun to do a little tutorial because I haven't done one of those yet, and a lot of people have been asking how I do my rendering. So without further ado, let's just get into it. This is my sketch. I'd previously done this just for like the background of a video a while ago. So you may or may not recognize it. But as this is a lighting and rendering tutorial, I'm not going to be drawing the sketch, so hopefully you already have a sketch ready available. And before we completely begin, I just want to say that I am using Procreate, and it does have some different features. I know that a lot of you who are artists use like Ibis Paint or Krita or whatever other art program you use. And so if I say something that does not correspond with your art program, there will be a little like blurb in the bottom corner. And yeah, whatever instructions I don't say will be there. So with that said and out of the way, here are 5 tips for lighting and rendering digitally. Said in the order that I do them in my artwork, this is the first tip. Always keep your layers separated. So I like to do this thing where I already have like my basic colors kind of planned out. They're not good colors, I adjust them later. That's a later tip though. So for this one, I just use my already just like pre-decided colors, and I use the lasso tool because it's the fastest and easiest. And I just fill in whatever I'm trying to color at that moment. The tip comes into play though when I not only have each separate color on a completely different layer, but I also separate it based on like foreground, middle, and background. So with these sand dunes, there are 2 layers of sand dunes. There's the one in the back and there's the one up closer. The ones in the back are going to be a darker color. So even though I'm starting with the same base color, I'm going to put them on separate layers so that I can distinguish between them. This makes it easier when you're trying to do like clipping masks and stuff and you want to get a nice clean line instead of my older art where it was just like messy everywhere and it wasn't very defined. Also with the subject of the piece, which is this weird creature thing, I separated the back legs and the back ears from the front ears and all of the like body and front legs and stuff. All of the different parts of the body are in different layers just to make it easier on me, I guess. But once you've got that done, now you can move on to step number 2, which is adjusting your colors after you've already put down the base colors. In Procreate, there's this nice handy dandy tool. It's called Curves. You can unlock it by just going to the little wrench icon, and underneath it there's all these color options. There's like hue, saturation, and brightness, and color balance, and underneath that is Curves, where you can adjust like how red it is, how green it is, and how light and dark it is. It's really helpful and probably one of my most used tools. So I normally, in order to separate the back from the front, I just turn down gamma, which is essentially the same as just sliding it down value scale, but not changing the tone of the color. And for things more in the foreground or that are closer to the light source, I like to make brighter. So I'm gonna do that to the head and the ear, the front ear, which I combined with the head. And I'm going to turn down the gamma on the back legs and the back sand dunes. Sadly, this feature is only a premium feature in Ibis Paint, and so if you have Ibis Paint and do not have the premium feature, so it would have to be done more manually, I would suggest trying to find a select tool that would select everything in that layer specifically, and there is probably a way that you can change what format the color is in, like when you choose your colors, so that you can just adjust based on the RGB scale. And then you could just use the fill bucket to just like change the colors a little bit, and you can keep tweaking it until you get the right colors. But essentially, if you want it darker, you turn down gamma, or you move the value lower, but don't change the saturation or any of the tone. And then you can just adjust your colors until they look more cohesive. Like for me, I wanted them more red and less saturated. Sorry, I meant purple, not red. And so I turned up green and up blue just a little bit until the colors looked like an actual color palette instead of whatever blobby mess this was. After adjusting all the curves, I combined all of my subject and my background. So now my background is just one gradient and my subject is just one cat. And if I turn down the opacity, the entire thing goes away instead of just like the legs going away. A quick little tip that's just kind of a bonus tip in this little section is to have high contrast between values in your artwork, between your subject and your middle ground and your background. As you can tell, my background is the darkest one. This is not always how it is, but it is in mine just because that's the mood I want. And my subject is the lightest value in this piece. I do this because if everything in your artwork is the same value, it decreases the emphasis on your subject and it also does not read well. It's not as clear. And this next tip is a great way to improve clarity in your art, and that is clipping masks. Clipping masks essentially just block any color to what is the color underneath it. And so since I have my subject here, and let's say I wanted to put some patterns on it, I would just use a clipping mask so that I wouldn't have to go around the whole creature after I already put the patterns in and just make sure that nothing is going outside of it. I also always do my shading in a clipping mask so that it's not muddy at all. It's always going exactly where the lines are. In Procreate, you can find clipping masks by going over to where you create a new layer, and you can click on whichever layer you want to be the clipping mask. In my case, it would be the patterns. When you click on it, as long as you don't click on the little N, it should show a little list of like things you can make it. You're gonna click on clipping mask because that will turn on clipping masks. And it really is that easy. A little side note so that you don't waste a bunch of your time just turning every layer into a clipping mask. If you create any layer directly under the clipping mask, it will automatically just become a clipping mask and then you won't have to manually change it every single time. The great thing is that I think that clipping masks is an option for the free IBIS paint. Just do some digging and I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. This is the next tip. It is tip number 4, I think. This next tip is the most important tip that I have ever come across, and for some reason, literally nobody is talking about it. Like, I've watched digital art tutorials before, and I've never come across this until I watched like a glowing art tutorial. And this isn't just for glowing effects. This is how I do my lighting. Anyways, the tip is to use blending modes. Blending modes, there's a lot of different modes, but essentially they just change whatever color is underneath them. Here's an example. This is the blending mode Multiply. It makes every single color underneath it darker than what it is. It can also change the tone depending on what color you're using. I don't really think anyone understands how cool blending modes are until you actually start using them, because it's essentially a perfect way to get good shading and good colors with your shading without having to specifically color pick each individual color for each different color you're trying to shade over. Blending modes are normally by where you create the layers. In Procreate, you just create a new layer or any layer you want to create into a blending mode. You tap the little N. This is normally how you change the opacity. But underneath the opacity is all these lists of like random things that you probably never paid attention to. But those are the blending modes. The N stands for normal, which is the blending mode it's on currently. That's just the standard setting that it's on where you do all the base colors and stuff. But you can change it to multiply, add, overlay, etc., etc. And I have told my friends about this before, but they're like, oh, I don't think that's in my drawing app that I use. But I can't stress this enough, that I have never opened up a drawing app and it hasn't had blending modes. Except for maybe Microsoft Paint, but if you're using Microsoft Paint, I'm so sorry. You should get yourself there are better free drawing options out there, I just want to say. If you are using Microsoft Paint, I'm so sorry you don't know what you're missing. But it's okay, I'm not going to stop you. Anyways, my formula to getting good shading is to use a light bluish color on Multiply for the shadows, and to use a light orange color in the add blending mode for lighting. This is not everything that I use for my lighting, but it is mostly everything, and it's the most important stuff that'll make it look pretty decent. But that brings us to our last and final tip, which is really only if you are doing something living as your subject of your artwork, like how I have this weird cat creature. But whenever light hits something that is alive and has blood, it like creates this little area of red saturation just in between like the light and the shadow. And so I am not entirely sure why this happens, but my guess is that it's just like the light refracting on the blood and just creating that little red warm tint. And I use the blending mode overlay to achieve this with just, in this piece it's a hot pink because that's just the color scheme I'm going for, but normally I'll just choose like a red or orange. Normally I hate using the smudge mode or any like soft gradients, but for this I actually do use the smudge tool because it's meant to be subtle, and the only really way to do that is with a gradient. And plus I think that a mix of soft and hard gradients are they just complement each other, so it's good to have a balance of both to give your art more variation, I guess. Here's another bonus tip for you. Normally I'll just go over my entire piece with overlay in the shadows, or overlay anywhere really, just to give it like a higher contrast. I also go over with a little bit of add just to highlight where the light source is coming from, but I always turn down the opacity. Anyways, yeah, that is a tutorial. You probably knew that, but I don't really care. Anyways, I wish I could have fit more stuff. I think I'll do another tutorial about shape and form and like where the lighting should go, because I couldn't fit that in this video. But anyways, thank you so much to my sister Challowberry, who just walked into this room and also made me the music. Goodbye, folks, and have a goose day. LOL. Goodbye.